Welcome everybody to today's deep dive session on June 15th, 2020. As you know, I'm your host today, Christine Capra, co-founder of Greater Than the Sum and sumApp. Today is the middle of our 3 monthly sessions, community practice sessions. On the second Monday of every month, we do an on-ramp, which is really an introductory session, as well as a meeting other people and seeing other people's maps session. In that time, we sort of talk very high level, and we usually have somebody share a map. And that happens on the second Monday of every month. The next one is July 13th, and I have to find out who's gonna share for next month. The third Monday, we do a deep dive conversation, which is today's conversation, which usually grows out of something that came up in an on-ramp or a tech talk. And today's deep dive conversation was suggested by Mary Roscoe. And we're gonna talk about leadership, social system mapping, and sense making, the new story. And that's today's session. And then the next session, the fourth Monday, we do a tech talk session where we dive into either a feature that we think people aren't aware of and would like to be more aware of, or a new feature, something like that, something specific to either sumApp, mostly sumApp, or Kumu. And on June 22nd of this month, we're going to do the connection import feature, which enables you to take connections from one project and move them into another project. So that if you're doing a network of networks, conglomeration of maps, you can save some of your people time not having to do their connections over and over again. So, okay, Mary, thanks. So also, not everybody knows this, but I've been doing office hours twice a week, Tuesday mornings at 9:30 Central Time and Thursday at 5 Central Time. Those are just their standing times. You can get the link to them. In fact, no, let's not do that. The link to them is in Slack, or email me for it. But once you have the link, just show up at that time, and I'll be there, and I can help you with whatever kind of questions you have, or whatever it is you want. And then I will cancel in Slack if I need to. Okay, for today we're having our greetings. We're going to have an agenda review. We're going to do a little bit of introductions in chat. Then we're going to do 2 breakout sessions, sort of relatively longish for our general format, which I'll explain in a minute, and then come back and have a group discussion. Normally, these sessions go for an hour, and then we have an extra half an hour where people, if they just want to hang around and ask more questions or have more just to chat with each other, normally there's an extra half an hour after the session. Today I have a client call, and so we won't be doing that today. I'm noticing that David Takahashi, I just want to check in with you, David, and see if we've got your voice working.
Here I am.
There you are. And let's have you put a 2 in front of your name, and then you can put your location after your name. But we're going to do some breakout stuff, 2 of them, and we need the numbers in front of the names to help Kara do that quickly. Mary Lou, I see you just came in. Can we see if we can hear you? Not hearing a Mary Lou yet. Okay. Let's see. And Mary Lou, would you put a 3 in front of your name? I can see that you changed your name, so I know you know how to do that. And then Jerry, let's see if you're finally in, and after your heroic struggles to get in, and if we can hear you.
I'm here.
Yay! Okay. And so Jerry, can you put a 1 in front of your name? And then after your name, you could put where you're located, because we love to see where people are calling in from, and but we need the number in front of your name so that we can do the breakouts. Welcome everybody. Okay. I think, Kara, can you see, have I addressed everybody?
You have, I think we have one, let's see, I think we have the right amount of numbers.
Okay, so before we jump in, I am just wanting to take a moment to acknowledge that while we are going to proceed with our work as if life goes on as normal, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that life is not going on as normal in many places, and that there is a lot of change going on, and some of that is very painful, and some of that is super important, and some of that has been long awaited. And just for us to all keep in our minds and remember that all of what we do with our mapping work exists in the context of this broader stuff that's going on in the world, and that I just feel it's important to just recognize and acknowledge that our hopes for the social system mapping paradigm is that it contributes to that shift being healing and generative. So I'm gonna take a moment of silence just to reflect on that for each of us. And to say, in all of that, there's so much going on that I'm being kind of vague, but Black Lives Matter is a very specific one that's high on my list. Moment. Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with some intros in the chat box. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. We'll answer them one at a time. So just go ahead and and let's start with your name, your pronoun, your location. Let's just get that on for everybody. So go ahead and do that and hit enter. Okay, and then let's answer this question, just how it feels to you at the moment. The new story that we're telling and growing into through network weaving is, what's this new story we're trying to tell and generate when we come together in networks? This is not a command performance. I don't believe in those. If you don't feel like answering it, don't feel like you have to. It's an invitation. And let's have you do this. Once you're done, use the raised hand icon, if you know where that is. And if you're not going to do it, just raise your hand also so that I know not to wait for you. Oh, thumbs up is good. Is everybody done? You can put physical works as well. Okay. Still, let's see. So, stories, collective cooperation. What's impossible for many is possible for many. Relationships, emerging and open, wholeness, broad leadership, and making the invisible visible. Interdependence. All of those things are interdependent concepts, aren't they? Very important. Okay, so then the last one for our chat is, so the new story that we're telling through social system mapping is what? So what are we trying to do and live into when we make social system maps? Increasing sense of community. Be discerning. Opportunities, making the invisible visible, makes a new opportunity. Patterning, yep. Let me know if you're done. Just wait. Okay, and we'll go forward. So having written your own thoughts and looked at other people's thoughts, what we're going to do next is we're going to break you up into groups of 3. Although, let's see, how many people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, let's just do the groups of 3 idea that we were going to go with. And then maybe for the second round, we'll split them into just pairs. How's that? Okay. So we're going to break you into a group of 3. You'll have 10 minutes total in this first group. So give each person 3 minutes in this first round to talk about the questions that are on the screen share, which are, given the news stories that we're trying to tell, such as what we just put in the chat, and tell and live into through our networks, what's the job that we're hiring a social system map to do? What specifically do we want it to do for us? And then what role does sense making and social system mapping have in leadership and the news story that we're trying to tell? And then what can we start doing differently right now to move in the direction of connecting map sense making to the news story? So what's one small change we can do? Kara has put those 3 questions in the chat, and she also put a link to a Google Doc that just has it spelled out. If you'd rather have it just click on the Google Doc link to help you remember what the questions are. You can use that. These are prompts. You don't have to take it like exactly literally the way I phrased it. It's just a prompt to start to think about sense making, the news story, leadership, and what we can do with that. So to repeat, the first 10 minutes, you'll be in a group of 3, give each other 3 minutes each to talk, or make it a very relatively evenly spaced conversation. And then at 10 minutes, Kara will switch you into groups of 2. So then you'll be in pairs, and you'll repeat what you heard from each other, and what, like as you do one conversation about it, that might trigger more thoughts. And this is another opportunity to sort of cross-pollinate with another person about your thinking and digest what you heard and add to it. And what would be great is if in both of those, at least once, you come away with one small change, because then we'll talk about the one small change at the end.
Kara, will you put a timer in the in the breakout? Thank you.
And Kara, let's have the second group be 6 minutes, since we're breaking it to smaller. Okay. Are you good with all that? Okay. So as soon as you're ready, does anybody have any questions before we break up? Is everybody good? Okay. Go ahead, Kara. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. So just before we're gonna put things in a chat in a moment, but just want to, does anybody, how did that go? Just maybe all together or hand movements? I was sitting here worrying that maybe somebody was not, maybe there was no energy going on. So I was actually, I was telling Kara, oh, I wish I could check in and watch them, because I can't tell what's going on. Are they bored? But no, it looks like you're all okay and you had a good conversation. Okay. I was trusting that, but I was still feeling anxiety. So thanks for giving me that feedback. Cool. So let's have you each put into the chat 1 or 2 things, one of which is what's one small change you could be making. And the other one, if you prefer, is just an aha from the discussion you had. And then, so have you put them all in the chat so we all get to express that together. And then we'll just see if there's any discussion that we want to have after that. Well, we will have some discussion. So
Can you repeat that first one, Christine?
so in the chat, either or both, one small change and or just an aha that you had from either from your conversations in the chat. Is that okay? And I invite you to read each other's comments, obviously. And when you feel complete with your chat comments, put up a hand, thumbs up, so I know you're done. That either with an icon or with your body. Is everybody done? Okay. Thank you for these. I like having them in the chat because then we can go sort of refer back to them later for more ideas. So who, if anyone, if you would like to sort of amplify and say a little more about one of your comments or add another comment, just let's have people raise their hands and we'll go through one at a time and dig into those comments a little bit. Who would like to go do some saying more out loud? No saying more out loud. You're all being polite, I can tell.
I would be very curious to have Reiner talk more about the intergenerational leverage, what that conversation was, if that'd be okay.
Yes, that was a hint from Paulo. And it resonated with me because at the moment we are in a setting where we are doing education for sustainable development, and in that field we do have more elderly people, gray-haired and so on. How could we use more internet technologies to attract younger people to join into these conversations about sustainable cities, sustainable living styles, and so on. So that's I grabbed from Paulo, or from the talk in his group, this intergenerational leverage that, and at the moment we do have a apprentice, don't know if that's the right word, a young woman who does, from her heart, is engaged in working with us in the team, and she brought new qualities into our work as well. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you for sharing. I will, because I've been doing a lot of intergenerational work this past year. One thing I will mention that I've heard from these high school students is they have some issues with the fact they say adults never come to ask and say, how do we make your life better? What do you need at this point in your life to make it work out? They say what they do is they come to us when they want our participation in the stuff they are already doing, right? They have screwed up the planet and now they want us to come join their plan for what to do. So I say that as just a word of warning to really step back and listen for what are young people in your area saying. You know, on the flip side, I will say I was astonished at how interested they were in having conversations with adults based on what they wanted to do in life, based on mental health. One young man said, you know, I have mental health issues. I have friends with mental health issues. I want to talk to a 60-year-old person who's had mental health issues their entire life and has made it to the other side. I want to know that is even possible. So I think these connections are just amazing. So I'm very excited to hear about your work.
Cool. Thanks, Stephanie. So who else would like to comment on their conversation or their takeaway and amplify that a bit? Mary? Mary, was that,
Oh.
you came into view, so I was thinking maybe that was your entrance to
Oh,
the conversation.
okay. We talked a lot about, I think more from an ecological perspective, which is really valuable. But one thing related to the current moment and Black Lives Matter and the potential role of mapping is, in the past, I experienced with mapping done at a conference where a person of color in the map was more on the periphery. And then as we did follow-up work after the conference and invited people to take up a leadership role, and then the consequent mapping we did or the updates, we could see Isabel moving towards the center. And that was really gratifying to see how mapping can sort of check, allow us to assess how we're doing with leadership in terms of broader leadership and being more inclusive.
Great, thanks. Jim?
I have a quick one, just lifting up what Mary Lou brought up, which was she was interested in the dynamics between people. So less of a static view of a particular relationship type, but more about the processes that happen between people as I understand it. But that gave me an aha of just thinking about how do you map some of those more process-oriented relationships.
Do you have a example, like an example of what that might mean, like an example?
Mary, do you have
Mary
something
Lou?
that you wanted to, Mary Lou, do you have something you want to say?
Thanks, Jim.
No, nothing comes to mind, but it was just more the, having a more of a dynamic view of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And not that the technology exists. It was more just in looking at a system, that's what I look at, are the elements and the dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And the value of it is to help show, maybe roadblocks or what's emerging, and it could inform quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't really know if it's even realistic. So that's why I was being quiet, because I was like, don't want to take us down a rat hole.
No, not at all. I mean, you mentioned conflict. It made me think of energy. Those are things that you could you could ask people what their relationship is with other people. That would give you a sense of some of that movement that you were talking about, but to be
Yeah.
explored.
Yeah, Mary Lou, it's I mean, from the reason I'm asking is just because this is the kind of thing that I'm always trying to figure out, how can we get at in a way that's not threatening. So, you know, there are people in a network that it's just not a good idea to pair me up with and try to get and expect much to get done because we'll just fall in. Our tensions will take up all of our energy. And I know that, and I would be willing to say that in a thing, but I don't, because I'm a pretty open person, but I think that most people, especially in Minnesota, where Minnesota Nice reigns, would not be comfortable saying, yeah, this isn't the best pairing, because then they would be afraid that that would create a conflict or people's feelings would be hurt. So I'm always trying to figure out how can we get at that in a way that, you know, some portion of the population in question would be actually comfortable with responding to. And that also is a culture change of being willing to be more transparent in the, you know, for me, it's just like, it's a benefit for the whole, if people just don't expect me to work with certain people and don't expect them to work with me, because we have a history that just has proven it's not a good idea. No one should waste their time on that. It's not like a dislike of the person. It's just like a recognition that in this network, that's not a super functional expectation. And, but that's a layer of transparency that we have to, you know, like be okay with, or say is an acceptable behavior. And it's not about disrespecting other people. It's just about acknowledging what is between you or isn't between you. Anyway, so I think that's really important, Mary Lou. Other people who would like to comment or unpack their Reiner.
Yes, on this piece you mentioned about, or Jim, I guess, this, if there are tensions, there's energy that could be used by the group. And just a picture from family therapy, there was a proposal that couples or families could have a place at the door when they come in, and they have representative figurines for themselves, and they put them in the right distance where they feel how it is actually. So you don't have to talk, but the others can see how am I at the moment. And I don't know if there is any way of representing it in our graphical environments. So that's it.
That's a good contribution. Yeah. Anyone else? I'm Jerry, wondering about you. We've not heard from you, and it's not a command performance, so feel free to say, I don't want to say anything, but I'm inviting you to let us hear what you're thinking, if you'd like.
I would say that this seems to be exactly what I'm wanting to get in touch with, is this skill that I'm hearing talked about, this way of organizing people and groups. So I think I've stumbled into the right conversation right now.
Great. Well, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Ariel joined us after the breakouts. And so again, not a demand, but an invitation. If there's any questions you're having or thoughts you're thinking at the moment in just hearing this this little conversation towards the end and seeing the chats, if there's just anything up for you that you would like from us or like to share with us.
No, I think I'm just absorbing the conversation. Sorry, I'm late. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm kind of like half participating, but I am looking forward to learning more about sumApp and getting into Kumu with the intention of strengthening climate action networks in Alaska. That's kind of like the goal. So I'm new and just sitting and observing today.
Great, good. Well, welcome. Do you, Kara, this might be a good time for you to put the Slack invite into the chat. So if any of you are not in our Slack team and would like to be, it's a good way to get help and get your questions answered. So yeah, so Kara's putting the Slack invite. You can click on that link and join whenever, if you would like. Anyone else would anyone else like to have questions or comments that they'd like to bring up?
If anybody else has something, I've already spoken, but I do have something.
So I'll just check in with Paolo and David, if either of you has anything burning. No? Okay, that's great. David, you good to let?
I'm good.
Okay. Good. Go ahead, Jim. Thanks for checking.
Yeah, just a quick one that if I can refer to Paulo's, Jerry's, what he's trying to do out there. Talked about inoculating against racism in a place where there's a lot of white supremacy operating. And, I'm used to operating in very sick communities where it's all about opening, and the idea of building relationships amongst people where there's some duress. And talking about it from a leadership perspective about how do you do that? How do you create a safe place where people can do the transformative anti-racist work in this case to move forward, but also have people support each other in doing that in a community where there's a different kind of pressure. I just think is a very important piece of leadership in terms of creating that container, and how much mapping, social system mapping, can do to make visible those relationships between people so that they can see where they can get support. And I just reminded me that we can use these kinds of maps of our relationships in different ways. So thank you for that, Jerry.
Thanks. For those of you who didn't hear me say this earlier, we're gonna not do the extra half hour that we usually do because I have a client meeting and so I can't stick around. Jim, I don't know if you would like to carry the conversation. If people want to stick around, you and Kara could do that, but I can't, and you can say no.
I would love to, but I can't.
Okay, so let's prepare to close. And what I like us to do at the end of our sessions is for all of us to unmute ourselves, and I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and at 1, just all say a word of goodbye, and it was good to see you, and appreciation, or whatever feels appropriate to you, just so that we can have a collective goodbye greeting. Okay, so if everyone unmute yourselves. And okay, so 3, 2, 1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for holding
Bye-bye.
space.
Thank you.
Jij
Great
meer
to
als
meet
nachts, mooi.
everyone.
Okay, thank you.
See you next
Bye-bye.
time.
Yep,
Bye
bye-bye.
bye.